Hello, everyone. Brandon Burbank here, and I'm got this wonderful opportunity to talk with Dan Thurmon. And Dan, could you introduce yourself a little bit to kind of give the viewers an understanding of who you are and
Well, for
why
sure.
you're just an important person in the field of NSA speakers and whatnot?
Well, Brandon, it's great to see you again. And of course, you and I were together in Nashville not too long ago at the NSA National Speakers Association Influence event, which is kind of like the big annual convention. I've been attending those types of events with NSA since 1994, believe it or not, which is about the time I launched my speaking business and kind of made the segue from being an entertainer, inspirer, kind of like performer guy into really going deep in the areas of personal development and self-help and motivation. And NSA has just been this incredible organization. It's like the fellowship of people who are speakers, trainers, authors, podcasters, anyone who uses the spoken word or the written word. You're using your words in order to uh, help others, but also to develop a business. So communication entrepreneurs is the way I think about speaking. So who am I? I've delivered thousands of presentations on 6 continents for every different industry you can imagine. I mean, people from troops on the front lines to world leaders and young audiences and old audiences. I've written a couple books. I've got a third book that's in production right now. And I've just had an amazing journey within this wonderful career and profession. So always excited to help someone like you who says, I think this is my career and I think I have a lot to give and a lot to help others with in their life and on their journey.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dan, and definitely here because I wanted to learn from you and collaborate with you, and particularly focus on a couple of questions that I have, just to kind of start the conversation about how I can be of service to my, fellow collaborators in the future and whatnot, and how what that would entail, as well as your personal expertise. You got a chance to check out my pocket speech at the NSA Youth Leadership Conference, and so I'm really excited to break that down with you and kind of get your take on that. With that being said, going to go into it, a couple questions. How could you describe my speaking style, and how can I add value to other schools or universities that are seeking a mental health speaker?
Well, I got to see you for that little pocket speech as you described it, which was honestly like throwing you into the deep end, right? Because it's like, we going in there, we had a pretty tight agenda as youth leaders, and for that program, we had a lot of those slots already filled. But I was just like, okay, Brandon, just hang loose. We'll try to get you some stage time. And honestly, when you went up there to do it, it was right after we saw Peter's session, and that
Yeah,
was, and you had told me how his program, his presentation really impacted you,
right.
right? And you maybe you could describe for our listeners what that session was specifically. Do you remember?
Yeah, yeah. It was just really moving presentation. He influenced some of his songs, infused his songs, and also his speaking style to help navigate the journey for the audience. And but more focusing on my pocket speech.
Yeah,
What are some takeaways that you got?
yeah. No, I'm getting to that. So basically, what I'm saying is like you told me like that's really what resonated with me, and I was like, well, share that with the youth and kind of use that as a jumping off point to share some of your other ideas. And so it was kind of like not really defined well in terms of the parameters that I gave you. And so that being the case, I thought that you had a lot of energy. You really lit up on stage. You brought, I saw a different side of you that I didn't know from our previous interactions, which is nice. I mean, that's the kind of like the performer bug or the teacher uh, part of us that comes alive when we have that opportunity to engage an audience. I think you really care about people. And I saw your ability to think on stage in real time and make connections to ideas that you had prepared in advance, right? But then connect those to things that were happening in real time. And you also surprised me with some humor too, that there's some physical humor elements
What's
that
up?
that I thought
What are
were
some aspects that come off your mind?
Well, it was just kind of you taking on this. I can't remember very specifically, but it struck me as you were doing something serious, but not taking yourself too seriously, right?
Right.
You were willing to poke fun at yourself, and you did that in a very physical way by kind of like stepping into these kind of like a different character of yourself. And I found that very, it was serving. It made you approachable to the audience by making you a little bit more vulnerable. And it was great. It helped us move things along and segue into the next part of our agenda.
Well, cool. And also I think just on that, I appreciate your perspective and your mini little review for that portion of my pocket speech. I got a chance to network and just collaborate with some of the kids that were in attendance, and it was awesome because I had one little girl come up to me and say, "Hey, your speech was very inspiring." And
Yeah,
but then it's
that's
like I
good.
took it to the next step and was like, "Hey, what did you find inspiring?" And she didn't have an answer, but she told me again for a second time, "Your speech is very inspiring." I was like, "Well, thank you. I appreciate that." Like, even though you don't have like all the answers to how I can be a better speaker, it's like at least the fact that somebody tells me twice that was
Yeah.
impacted as a youth just in my pocket speech says a lot.
Yeah, in my experience, young audiences, youth, people in the audience, younger kids, um, they don't feel obligated to tell you something that makes you feel good, right? So when they say that, you could pretty much trust, oh, that's a genuine opinion. But no, the fact that she couldn't necessarily articulate why, that's not unusual. I mean, people come up to me after my speeches all the time, and it's basically like, they want to just know you. They want to bridge that gap and say something because you've given them a lot of value, or they've been watching you share your wisdom or whatever. And then when they close that loop, it's just a means to say, hey, we're really in this together.
Yeah.
But she was probably just whatever you did, hit her in a good way. And that's what you're looking for as a speaker.
Okay.
It's not about how did I connect with everybody. It's
Yeah.
about, did I help a person or a couple people in the audience? And for me, that's what I always look at, is like, when those people come up and say, hey, this was for me today, that
Okay.
then
What
you
about
did it.
this? What are some areas that I can improve upon? Because I'm not a perfect speaker. I never will be. But what are some areas
Oh my
as a
gosh.
professional speaker's perspective?
Oh man. No, I mean, none of us are perfect speakers. And if this business has taught me anything, even with the thousands of presentations I've done, it's like, you can be humbled like that. Like every time you step off stage, the way I look at it is there's three shows. There's the one you think about ahead of time, like the one you plan, the one you deliver, and then the one you think about afterward. And you're like, oh, I wish I'd have said that, or I should have done this differently. And I learn every time I speak. So if I could flip the question to you, because it's very, very vulnerable again for you to ask me that question here live on your podcast.
Right.
What did you take away from it? Like in your third show, what did you capture that you were like, yeah, maybe that's something I could have done better?
Oh, I think if I had more time to generate the whole picture, paint the picture of the speech, because you gave me like 5 minutes or so, and then asked me to go off the stage, so I had no choice but I was getting ready to go on a roll to like start introducing some topics on mental health, my personal background, and how those all come into a culmination of perspective and value that I was able
Yeah.
to provide. So
Yeah, that was on me, because I was seeing this as not your opportunity to necessarily share the mental health piece, but as the bridge between, like the a little segue speech between what we had just experienced and setting up what was coming next. And I didn't communicate that very clearly to you, so I didn't really cut you off so much as I wanted to interject and kind of like put some validation to what you were doing at that moment. No, I think that in general, you just, like everybody else, you need more reps. It's all about logging time on stage in front of
yeah, I
audiences.
forgot to record it too, and that's another bummer that I
Yeah,
really wish I would have done.
we could have definitely done better with that. I feel like all of us as speakers can always benefit from elevating our empathy. Okay. And so that's one thing I would suggest that you think about is when you're on stage, it's very easy to think like, how am I doing? What am I saying? How do I put this together in a way? And you're very much aware that you are the focus of the moment, because everybody's looking at you. And yet it's our job, um, to kind of like sidestep all of that attention and adoration and reflect back your gaze on the audience and really like look into eyes and souls and say, how can I serve you today? There's that elevation of empathy. And I think that that's something like, again, I can work on, but I think you could work on as well. And the more you do it, the more confidence you get. And then how you're being perceived by the audience is less the primary concern, you know what I mean? And so it's like, you're really all about, how do I get to you? How do I connect with you?
Yeah.
And that's when people, it's kind of like when people know that you're there to serve them, then they can relax. And when they know that you're comfortable on stage, then they can be comfortable in the audience because they know you're not going to waste their time. So, but again, no, I thought given the parameters that I gave you and like that moment, you stepped into it very strongly.
I appreciate that. No, and Dan, also just because of we're both involved with NSA, I'm a member of NSA LA, and this
Good.
chapter and also this association organization has done tremendous amount of impact in terms of my business growth and development and personal development too. And so some of the audience members or the viewers, we want to know, it's just what you being in some of the leadership roles at NSA, how are you growing, and how are you able to, what are some of the things that you could give to as advice to future people that want to get involved? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. NSA is such an incredible organization. And the chapter level is a great way to plug in because you get to meet a smaller community of people. Not all of them are, everybody's at a different place in their speaking business, right? Some are just starting out, others have been established for a long time, some are very profitable, others are just looking to score their first paycheck as a professional speaker. And so the chapter level, and you're right, LA is a great chapter. Atlanta, where I live, is another excellent chapter. There are over 30 NSA chapters around the country. So if you're ever interested in exploring what this thing called professional speaking really is, definitely look for an NSA chapter near you and just show up. And what you'll find is that people are very generous. Abundant generosity is our number one value, because we really believe that we're trying to do good work in the world, and we need more people to do good work in the world. So my story or my expertise is going to be different than your story and your expertise. But if I can share what I've learned, then I can help you. And then and we're also kind of the vision of NSA is leveraging words to lift the world. So we're all lifting the world in different ways. I've been very fortunate to serve at the chapter level here in Georgia, and then at the national level, in every capacity. I've chaired labs and workshops and conventions. I planned entire conferences myself, and with my team, co-chairs and other people who've helped me. I've been honored to serve as president of NSA, which is kind of the biggest job, and then the youth leadership chair, which is was very near and dear to my heart because I believe it's so important that we elevate that next generation of leaders, who really need the tools that they don't necessarily get at school or in their friends or in their peer groups. But not everybody who raises their hand to say, hey, let me serve at NSA, not everybody gets picked, right? It's really the trickiest thing because people who are very genuinely willing to serve might often get overlooked just because there's too much happening or because their idea isn't really relevant at the moment that they offer it or whatever. And if you're not careful, and I think this is the case in any volunteer organization, the people who are very willing to contribute can sometimes get discouraged. But I would just say, keep offering, keep showing up, keep asking. And really it might not be about helping on a big scale. It could be just helping one person. one-on-one. And I've done plenty of that as well, like taking people out to lunch or dinner to share with them about what they're working on and what I've learned. And you always, when you approach it with the mindset of giving, you always get so much more in return. At least that's what I found.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Dan, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the viewers and listeners today?
Well, absolutely. I would love for you to know there's people like us in the world who really genuinely care about you. I mean, yes, we're in business and we're trying to be successful because, like any undertaking, you want to be able to provide for your family and do well. And the validation of being hired time and time again to be asked, "Would you please come our speaker?" Hey, it feels great when you get that invitation, or when you grow your business, or when you get a check, right? But you could be in business in any field, but to be a professional speaker, it's not a quick fix. People sometimes get into this business thinking it's going to be easy, and it's not. It takes a ton of work. I often say, "Oh, this is an easy business. All it takes is everything you have," right? Yeah. And I mean that because it takes your heart, it takes your mind, your skill set. It takes a tremendous amount of work because you're developing content, you're building out websites, you're doing podcasts, you're constantly thinking about what's next. And when you're an entrepreneur, you're never done because you're always thinking about that next thing. But if you have a passion for helping others, if you have a talent for being on stage, there's that artistry of speaking, of learning the art and craft of delivering a message that intersects with the relevance of what your audience really needs from you. And if you pursue that intersection of great, amazing art performances, delivering beautiful speech that means something to someone, then you've really found possibly your life's passion, as I know I have. And I think you're on that track too, Brandon. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, Dan Thurmon. And thank you so much, guys, for tuning in on my YouTube channel. And also this will be on my podcast in the future. However, once again, if you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down below. And I just want to say thank you so much for everybody for supporting me in my journey as I grow my business, come back to success. And I'm just excited to see what's on the horizon. With that being said, guys, take care, stay blessed, and have a great day. See you.
See you later.